Okay, let's now take a look at LinkedIn invitations. And I have a few examples open here so you can take a look at the difference between how you can message and invite people depending upon whether they're first, second, or third degree. And I'm going to kind of pick on the Jameses and the Samuels in my network today. So you'll notice a theme amongst the names of the folks I'm looking at. And the first one that I have here is actually a first connection of mine. And you'll notice because I'm already connected with Samuel here, he's showing as a first connection. And then as an option, LinkedIn is giving me the ability to message Samuel, of course. And so you're going to notice that this is slightly different when I look at my second and third degree connections. And second and third, if you're not familiar, are somewhat friends of friends and friends of friends of friends. And so, yeah, let's take a look at a second connection. A business intelligence analyst. He's a second connection for me. But you'll notice I'm given different options here because I'm not already connected with him. I'm given the option of connecting. I can also message him. Now, even though I can message him, I will likely go ahead and actually hit the connect request instead. And you'll notice as soon as I do that, it tells me that I'll get a better success rate if I include a custom or a personal note in my invitation. So if I was going to go ahead and do that, then I would click on add a note, and there you go. You put in whatever stock detail or template details that you're providing to some folks, and you would go ahead and then say send the invitation. Now you'll notice when I hit on a third connection, here's another Samuel. I told you there'd be a theme, didn't I? Here's a third connection, so you can tell he's a third right here. But you'll notice they give me different options down here. They give me the ability to message him, which if I click on that, it's going to kick me over and say, yeah, you need the premium subscription to message this person. But what you may not notice is that I can actually connect with him. So if I click on these ellipsis, I can actually click on the connect, and I can go ahead and I can message him as well. Now, there's one little key notable I want to draw your attention to, which unfortunately has nothing to do with invitations, but let me see. Let me go back to my original Samuel here. There he is. Remember, he's done my first connection. Well, you'll notice on first connections, there's this green dot, and LinkedIn has released that. It was released around 2017. So basically, it shows when the individuals are active and somewhat available. Now, this, you're going to want to take that for a grain of salt. It doesn't mean that somebody's actually sitting on their LinkedIn page right now. It just means that they may have their app, maybe a phone app that's connected, and so therefore they're on their phone or whatever the case might be, or the app is consistently connected. So therefore it shows him as being available. However, that might not be the case. But it does let you know that they are somewhat connected and that you might be able to reach this person without too much hassle. You might be wondering on who to connect with initially to kind of get your LinkedIn network rocking and rolling, so to speak. And so first place, obviously, to start with are colleagues. These are individuals you've worked with in the past or individuals you work with currently. And then, of course, don't overlook current and past classmates. And this could be at the high school level or even at the college level. So consider those vendors, salespeople, for example. They tend to connect with a lot of people who are in their immediate network, and that includes vendors because salespeople generally go from company to company, from employer to employer. So they want to have those vendor relationships. They want to keep those, so they will add those folks to their LinkedIn network. Same thing goes for customers. So they'll connect with their customers as well. And then, of course, don't overlook friends and family, right? So there's no reason why you couldn't or shouldn't have friends and family in your LinkedIn network. So if you're looking to kick off your LinkedIn network, these are the places I would start with to build your network. And you can go ahead and you can send invitations to some of them. If you have a premium account, you can certainly send in-mails to these folks and ask to connect with them as well. Otherwise, a fair amount of them you'll be able to easily just send connection requests to. Some may or may not connect with you, but that's just kind of the name of the game. Second level connections are obviously friends of friends. So if you and I, for example, were connected on LinkedIn, then anyone who is in your network would then be considered second level to me, because you and I would be connected. So therefore you would be my first level. And then whoever you're connected with would then be a second level connection for me. I hope that makes sense. LinkedIn's network is not that complicated, so there's quite a few people you'll be able to connect with without having to use InMail or without having to use an introduction. One of the key things that'll tell you whether you can or can't send that person an invite is whether their full name is showing. LinkedIn's settings functionality has changed quite a bit in the last year, and so for example, I could go out to my LinkedIn and I could change some settings and make it more difficult for people to contact me. So keep that in mind. You just make sure that if you want to make it easy for individuals to connect with you and contact you, then make sure your full name is showing so that they can send you direct invites to connect. And like I said earlier, you can use shared connections to ask for introductions. So like, again, my example previously was if you had someone in your network I wanted to connect with, I could ask you to do an introduction. Now, the friends of friends of friends, which would be third level, that's where things can get a little bit stickier on whether you can or can't connect with these folks, or whether you would even want to. It just really depends on who they are and how far down into your network they are. You can contact them obviously through InMail. Now you can connect to someone through your groups as well, although that feature has changed quite a bit as well. So let's take a look at that real quick on what exactly that means. And here I am on my network page. I'm actually going to go up here and click on work, and I'm going to click on groups. And once I go over to group, you'll notice it's going to show some of the groups that I'm a member of. So let's go ahead and do that. And let's just kind of pick one out here as in random. Let's go to the recruiter group. So let's just say, for example, I wanted to connect with David. Now you'll see once I hover over his name, because he is not he's a second level connection for me. So I am not directly connected with him. He's connected with somebody who's in my network. So once I hover over that, you're going to notice it gives me the ability to either view his profile or message him. Now I can watch when I click on view his profile. See, I'm given the ability to connect with him as well. So I can go ahead and do that, or I can message him, but I need a LinkedIn Premium account to do that. So I could definitely go ahead and connect with him. And then what I would want to do when I sent my invitation is I'd want to say, hey, we're a member of the same group, kind of thing. So he knows that I'm just haven't picked his profile out on random. And so, yeah, so he and I are part of the same group, the same recruiter group. And see, he's part of recruiter.com, in fact. So he and I could connect if I wanted to go ahead and hit the connect and send him a personal invite. In the past, there had actually been when you clicked on invitation, it would give you the option of saying, hey, he and I are part of the same group, and that feature is no longer there. So if you're an old time LinkedIn user like I am, then you know that they have actually changed some of their features. And so you can no longer check the box that says, this person and I are a member of the same group. Okay, now that we've talked about sending LinkedIn invitations, let's talk a little bit about getting LinkedIn invitations. And there's definitely a few bits of criteria you're going to want to use when getting invitations from someone. And I'll kind of go through exactly the criteria that I use, because I'm a little bit of a stickler on who I do and do not connect with. One of the things I look for when I get the invitation is I notice whether there's a profile pic. It's just one of those fussy little things that I like to see. It takes all but 2 minutes to add a picture to a LinkedIn profile. So if there's actually somebody who sends me an invite who does not have a picture, it's not necessarily, an absolute. I don't automatically delete that LinkedIn invite. It's kind of that one red flag, right? That one thing that tells me this might not be a person I want to connect with. Second thing I look at is whether they're an ideal connection for me. There's certain individuals based upon what I do that just would not be a good fit for me. I kind of think of it as if I was having a big party, would this be somebody I'd invite to my party? And I don't mean just a general party, I mean like a networking event, so to speak. And so can they help me and can I help them? And so you're gonna find out as you get further into, sending and accepting LinkedIn invitations, is that you'll kind of get a feel as for who is and is not a good fit for you. One other thing I look for is I'm a little bit strict on who I connect with, who's out of the country. Although I have loosened my reins on that a little bit. In the beginning, I was pretty strict on not connecting with anybody outside the country. But however, the world is becoming flat, especially in the world of business. So connecting with individuals who are in another country might not be a bad idea. Maybe not so much in the beginning, but as you get further into building your network, you might kind of want to dabble in, especially if, these are people you can help or they can help you, kind of thing. It really depends on what type of position you're targeting, and for your career, and what you do in your career, and whether you provide content, for example, that might help them, or they provide content that you think can help you, or maybe you have leads for that person or that person has leads for you, that kind of thing. So there can be a mutual benefit there between the two of you, especially even individuals who are across the world. Someone else you might not want to connect with are these open networkers, and you'll see they'll have Lion, Lion, on their profiles. Not always, but they won't always mention it, but a fair amount of time they do. And the reason you may not want to connect with these folks is simply because they're really just looking for a warm body. Their networks are primarily built on quantity and not so much on quality. So to them, you may or may not be just a number. And so that might be something you might want to stay away from, especially if you're building a smaller network. Now, there's pros and cons to building a small versus a larger network, and we'll definitely go through that in another training. But for as of right now, one of the things you'll want to do is just focus on those individuals that you can help and that can help you, that mutual relationship. And so keep an eye out on those that have a line that mention Lion. It just means they're open networkers. And LinkedIn Open Networkers, which the acronym is LION. So consider whether you want to connect with a LION or not. Now, other individuals you might not want to connect with would be current colleagues. And the reason you might not want to do that is because when and if you get into an active job search, it can be a red flag, right? If you start participating on your LinkedIn page and you all of a sudden one day update it, and maybe a colleague or your boss notices. So one way to avoid that is just not to connect with your current colleagues, at least not for the time being, or until you change jobs. Then they'll become former colleagues and you can connect with them then. It definitely can be a concern. Now, LinkedIn does recognize that as an issue, and there are some updates to a LinkedIn profile that they don't show to your network. However, they don't guarantee your anonymity, which is really the caveat, right? So if you do make changes to your LinkedIn profile, do them slowly and delicately, right? Changes and tweaks, and spread it over a fair amount of time. So if you do have current colleagues in your network, then you can kind of hide it or kind of camouflage it a bit anyway, so it's not immediately noticeable. Other people you might not want to connect with are just people who have a LinkedIn profile but don't necessarily look like they're home. And again, you'll figure out what I mean by that when you become far more active on LinkedIn. You'll notice if you get an invite and you take a look at their LinkedIn profile and it's kind of sparse, right? And there's just not a lot going on, and they might have very basic details, and things are just, very vague and unknown for you. And so maybe you don't know this person and you have no idea whether you can help them or they can help you. And that's just kind of a red flag. If somebody for me anyway, if somebody has a LinkedIn page and they don't really look like they're doing too much with it, or if they've just done done the bare necessities, that'll be somebody that I might not connect with right away, or I will immediately ignore their LinkedIn invitation. And the reason for that is at that point, I don't have enough information to determine whether it's a valid person, right? Or if it's been a LinkedIn profile that's been created by a computer, or it's a spam profile. We're hearing a lot more about those through LinkedIn. So you're going to want to steer clear of those spam profiles as much as you can, because not that LinkedIn penalizes you or anything, it's just not good for your network to be connecting with those guys, because their goal at some point is to find a way to spam you. And so you're going to want to steer clear from those guys as much as you can. So when you go to look at a LinkedIn invitation, and then you pop over to the person's profile, take a really good look at their LinkedIn profile and how fleshed out it is, and do you get the feeling that it's an actual person, or if it's something that generic that somebody just threw up there, and it doesn't, that content that's on that profile just doesn't mean much, right? And so that's kind of your next red flag. If they're missing a profile pic, and then their LinkedIn profile looks very basic, and things are just thrown on the page and nothing makes sense, and they just look like they've done the bare minimum, then that might be somebody you also do not want to connect with.